All right, you sick fucks. Ever think about how we're all just living on borrowed time?
Uh,
One wrong move and some jackass could turn the whole planet into a radioactive wasteland?
right.
We're diving deep into the world of nukes today. You wanted the lowdown on these apocalyptic bastards.
Yeah.
So let's cut the crap and get right into it.
Well, it's certainly a topic that, demands attention.
And right.
The sheer power of these weapons is unlike anything else humanity has ever created.
But you already know the basics, right? We're not here to bore you with history lessons.
Right.
We're going for the holy shit moments, the stuff that'll make you look at the world sideways.
Right, right. So,
I think we can manage that.
good.
Let's start with the fundamentals, the difference between fission and fusion bombs.
Okay.
People throw those terms around, but what the hell do they actually mean?
Yeah, cut through the bullshit. One
Yeah.
splits atoms, the other smashes them together. Big whoop, what's the real deal? Is one, way more fucked up than the other. It's not just about splitting or smashing, it's about the scale of the energy released.
Okay.
Fission is like setting a pile of dynamite on fire.
Right.
It's a big explosion, don't get me wrong, but fusion, that's like detonating a goddamn star.
Holy shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're talking city-leveling explosions versus, like, planet-cracking power.
You're catching on.
Oh, good.
Think about this.
Okay.
The first fission bomb, Little Boy, dropped on Hiroshima,
Right.
was the equivalent of roughly 15,000 tons of TNT.
Okay.
That's enough to wipe a city off the map.
Oh, sure.
A whole city gone just like that.
Oof.
But the first fusion bomb tested,
Yeah.
over 1,000 times more powerful, we're talking about the destructive force of 10 million tons of TNT.
10 million?
Mm.
Fuck, what the hell were these scientists thinking?
That's a debate for another time.
Okay.
But the point is,
Right.
even the small nukes we hear about today pack enough punch to turn a city into a smoldering crater.
Jesus Christ. All right, let's back up a second and talk about Little Boy and Fat Man.
Yeah.
The only two times these things have actually been used in war, right?
Yes. Hiroshima and Nagasaki, 1945. Grim chapters in human history.
Grim is an understatement.
Yeah.
Okay, so Little Boy, that was the uranium bomb, and Fat Man was plutonium.
Right.
What's the difference, aside from sounding like a bad superhero duo? I mean,
They're both fissile materials, meaning they can sustain a nuclear chain reaction.
okay.
Think of it like this. You need enough of the material packed tightly enough to create a runaway explosion of energy.
Gotcha.
Uranium and plutonium just require different designs to get to that critical point.
Right.
Little Boy was a relatively simple gun-type design, while Fat Man used a more complex implosion method.
So two different ways to achieve the same horrifying result.
Exactly.
Got it. But what about the damage? How much ass did those things actually kick?
Little Boy had a yield of about 15 kilotons of TNT.
Okay.
Fat Man was around 21 kilotons.
Right.
The immediate devastation was unimaginable.
Yeah.
Tens of thousands dead instantly, cities reduced to rubble and ash.
Fuck, and that's not even considering the long-term effects of radiation poisoning and all that shit.
Exactly. The fallout from these detonations is a whole other level of horror.
Right.
Cancers, birth defects, the environment poisoned for generations.
Yeah, that's some heavy shit. We'll save that for another time.
Sure.
Right now, I'm morbidly curious about who else has these goddamn things. How many countries are sitting on a stockpile of planet killers?
Well, the official nuclear club includes the U.S., Russia, the UK, France, China, India, Pakistan, and North Korea.
Wait, North Korea? Those crazy motherfuckers actually have nukes.
They do, and they've been actively developing their arsenal.
Wow.
Israel's also widely believed to have nukes, though they've never officially confirmed it.
So we've got a bunch of superpowers, some unstable regimes, and probably a few more we don't even know about, all with their fingers on the button. That's pretty fucked up, right?
It's a tense situation, to say the least.
Yeah.
Especially when you consider the potential for accidents or miscalculations.
Okay, let's say some trigger-happy asshole actually decides to use one of these things.
Yeah.
How do they actually get them to their target? It's not like they just chuck them out of a window, right?
You'd be surprised, gravity bombs, literally dropped from planes, are still a major part of the U.S. nuclear arsenal.
Wait, seriously?
Yeah?
They're still dropping nukes out of planes like it's World War II.
Yeah.
That's some old school shit.
It might seem antiquated, but it has its tactical advantages.
Really?
Of course, missiles are the more common image people have. ICBMs, intercontinental ballistic missiles, for long-range strikes.
Yeah.
And SLBMs, submarine-launched ballistic missiles, for a stealthier approach.
Right, the classic launch the nukes from a submarine scenario we see in all the movies. But I bet there are other ways, right?
Oh, yeah.
Shit you wouldn't even think of.
Absolutely.
But
We're
yeah.
talking artillery shells,
What?
landmines, even nuclear depth charges.
Nuclear depth charges. Jesus, what the fuck is the point of that? Turn the ocean into a radioactive soup.
Well, they were mainly used for anti-submarine warfare during the Cold War.
Okay.
The point is,
Yeah.
the methods of delivery are more varied than most people realize.
Right.
And then you've got MIRVs, multiple independently targetable reentry vehicles.
Sounds like some kind of sexually transmitted disease.
Think of it this way. One missile launches multiple warheads,
Okay.
each capable of hitting a different target.
Gotcha.
It's a nightmare scenario for any defense system. Trying to intercept them all is practically impossible.
So they're like a cluster bomb, but for nukes? That's just messed up.
Yeah, pretty much.
What about those suitcase nukes everyone freaks out about? Are those actually a thing, or is that just Hollywood bullshit?
While there's no definitive proof they exist, the concept is plausible.
Okay.
Small, portable nuclear devices designed for sabotage or terrorism.
Great, so now we've got to worry about nukes getting lost in airport baggage claim. Talk about a fucked up vacation souvenir.
On that cheery note, perhaps we should discuss nuclear accidents.
Oh, yeah.
Because when you're dealing with this level of destructive power, sooner or later, shit's gonna go wrong.
Oh, yeah, it totally has. And not just the big headline-grabbing disasters either.
Yay.
Let's hear about some of the lesser-known fuck-ups. You know, the ones that make you wonder if anyone in charge had a single brain cell.
Well, there's the Demon Core incidents back in the 40s during the Manhattan Project.
Demon Core. Sounds ominous.
It was.
Okay.
This plutonium core was involved in 2 separate accidents where scientists essentially gave themselves lethal doses of radiation.
What?
They were pushing the limits of what they understood, and they paid the price.
So they accidentally nuked themselves. Jesus, what a way to go.
It was a tragic reminder of the dangers involved in handling this kind of material.
Okay, so a couple of scientists got fried. What about bigger fuck-ups? Like planes crashing with nukes on board?
That has happened, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
In 1966, a B-52 bomber carrying 4 hydrogen bombs crashed in Spain. None of them detonated, thankfully, but 2 of them ruptured, scattering plutonium over a wide area.
So much for that Spanish vacation.
Right.
Okay, but at least they didn't go boom.
True, but the contamination was a major issue.
Right.
And then there's the lost bomb in the Philippine Sea.
Right.
In 1965, a U.S. Navy plane carrying a nuke went down, and they never recovered it.
Hold on, so there's a goddamn nuke just chilling out on the ocean floor somewhere.
It appears so.
That's stuck comforting.
Right.
Speaking of shit going wrong, let's talk about fallout. Even if a nuke doesn't detonate, that stuff is nasty as hell, right?
Right. Fallout is the radioactive debris released after a nuclear explosion.
Yeah.
And it can linger in the environment for decades, even centuries.
And stuff can kill you, right? Isn't that what happened to that Japanese fishing boat, the Lucky Dragon?
Yes. They were caught in the fallout plume from a U.S. hydrogen bomb test in 1954.
Okay.
One of the fishermen died from radiation sickness.
Damn, so basically this shit's radioactive for, like, forever.
Not literally forever.
Okay.
Radioactive materials decay over time, but some isotopes have half-lives of hundreds or even thousands of years.
So even if we somehow avoid blowing ourselves up, we could still end up poisoning the planet with this shit.
That's a possibility.
Fantastic. But wait, doesn't it get even worse? I've heard about this thing called nuclear winter. What's the deal with that?
Nuclear winter is a chilling possibility.
Okay.
The idea is that a large-scale nuclear war wouldn't just cause immediate devastation.
Yeah.
It could trigger a global environmental catastrophe.
Okay, let's hear it. How bad could it actually get?
Imagine this.
Okay.
Massive firestorms caused by nuclear explosions
Right.
throw millions of tons of soot and dust into the atmosphere,
Gotcha.
blocking out the sun.
So no more sun.
Temperatures plummet worldwide, crops fail, ecosystems collapse.
So we're talking about a global ice age caused by nukes. That's just fucked up.
Yeah.
But would it actually be an extinction level event? Could humans actually survive that shit?
It's hard to say for sure, but recent studies suggest that a full-scale nuclear war could kill billions, not just from the initial blasts,
Okay.
but from the subsequent famine and ecological collapse.
Billions with a B. Jesus Christ, that's just... I can't even...
It's a sobering thought, to say the least.
Damn right.
And it underscores the importance of doing everything in our power to prevent nuclear war.
For sure.
It's a chilling scenario, no doubt, but the good news is it hasn't happened yet.
Yeah, hopefully those dipshits in charge don't screw it up for the rest of us.
Right.
Okay, so we've talked about the different types of nukes.
Right.
The crazy-ass yields and all the fucked up ways they can be delivered.
Right.
But let's get back to the basics for a second. What the hell is in these things? What makes them go boom?
We're talking about fissile material, the key ingredient in any nuclear weapon. The most commonly used ones are uranium-235 and plutonium-239.
Right, uranium, plutonium, the classic nuclear ingredients.
Yeah.
But are there others? Some even weirder, more radioactive shit out there?
There are a few other isotopes that could theoretically be used, like uranium-233 or even some isotopes of americium.
Americium.
But it's not clear if those have ever been weaponized.
That sounds like something out of a goddamn comic book.
Right.
So it's all about these special radioactive elements.
Yeah.
You cram enough of them together and they go kaboom.
It's a bit more complicated than that. You need a critical mass of material.
Okay.
And you need to trigger a chain reaction.
Okay.
Think of it like a domino effect.
Right.
One atom splitting triggers another, and so on.
Yeah.
Until you have a runaway explosion of energy.
So it's a domino effect, but with atoms, and instead of falling over, they're splitting apart and releasing a shit ton of energy.
Exactly.
Got it.
Yeah.
But let's say you do manage to build one of these things.
Right.
What are your options? I mean, besides blowing up your annoying neighbor, of course.
That's where nuclear strategy comes in. And believe me, it's a hell of a lot more complicated than just picking a target and firing.
Yeah, nuclear strategy. Sounds like a fancy way of saying how to fuck shit up on a global scale.
It can certainly be seen that way, but at its core, nuclear strategy is about using the threat of nuclear force to achieve your political and military goals.
Right.
And there are different schools of thought on how to do that.
Schools of thought. Like there are actual classes you can take on how to wage nuclear war.
There are entire institutions dedicated to studying nuclear strategy, wargaming, different scenarios, analyzing the potential consequences. It's a chillin' subject.
Yeah.
But a necessary one if we want to avoid the unthinkable.
Okay, so what are these different schools of thought? What kind of fucked up strategies are we talking about here?
Well, there's deterrence theory, which is basically the if you nuke us, we'll nuke you back idea.
Right.
The whole mutually assured destruction thing, or MAD for short.
MAD. Yeah, that about sums it up. But does that shit actually work? Are we really just relying on everyone being too chicken to push the big red button?
It's worked so far, hasn't it?
Well, I guess...
The U.S. and the Soviet Union had enough nukes to wipe out humanity several times over.
Right.
But they never used them. It was a terrifying standoff, but it maintained a kind of twisted peace.
Twisted is the right word. But what about today? The Cold War's over, but we still got all these nukes floating around.
Right.
And there are a lot more players in the game now, right?
That's one of the biggest challenges we face today. Nuclear proliferation. More and more countries are trying to get their hands on these weapons.
Proliferation. It sounds like a fancy way of saying everyone's trying to get a piece of the apocalyptic pie.
It's a pretty accurate analogy.
But why? Why are so many countries obsessed with nukes?
There are a lot of reasons.
Like what?
Some countries see nuclear weapons as the ultimate deterrent, a way to ensure their survival in a dangerous world. Others see it as a symbol of power and prestige. Still others are motivated by regional rivalries or historical grievances.
So it's a mix of paranoia, ego, and good old-fashioned revenge.
You could say that.
Just a typical Tuesday in international politics. But surely someone's trying to stop this shit, right? What's being done to keep these things under control?
There are a number of international treaties and organizations aimed at limiting the spread of nuclear weapons. The most significant one is the Non-Proliferation Treaty, or NPT.
NPT. Sounds like something you'd get at the doctor's office.
It's an agreement signed by the majority of the world's countries.
Okay.
It basically says that the countries that already have nukes agree not to help anyone else get them, and those that don't have them promise not to try and build them.
Sounds like a good idea on paper, but does anyone actually follow the rules?
For the most part, yes. The NPT has been relatively successful in slowing down the spread of nuclear weapons.
Okay.
But there are always a few bad apples.
Always like who? Let's name and shame these motherfuckers.
North Korea is the most obvious example. They withdrew from the NPT back in 2003 and have been developing their nuclear program ever since.
Those guys are a real pain in the ass. Always saber-rattling and making threats. What the hell are they so scared of?
It's complicated, but their history and their current political situation play a big role. They see nuclear weapons as their only guarantee against a potential attack, particularly from the U.S. and its allies.
So they're playing the deterrence game too, just on a smaller, crazier scale.
Exactly, and that's what makes it so dangerous. If they ever felt truly cornered or desperate, they might actually use them.
Shit. All right, so North Korea is a problem. Who else is messing things up in the nuclear sandbox?
Iran has also been under scrutiny for its nuclear program.
Right.
They claim it's for peaceful purposes, but there are concerns they might be developing weapons capabilities.
Peaceful purposes.
Yeah.
Right, like they're building a giant nuclear-powered toaster oven.
It's a sensitive issue with a lot of mistrust on both sides.
Yeah.
The international community has imposed sanctions and diplomatic pressure to try and curb their program.
So it's a big geopolitical standoff. Everyone flexing their muscles and trying to scare the shit out of each other.
It often feels that way.
But are these treaties and sanctions actually doing anything? Or are we just kicking a can down the road until someone inevitably fucks up?
It's tough to say for sure. There are no easy answers, but I believe it's important to remember that many people are working tirelessly to prevent nuclear war.
Really? Who the hell would sign up for that job? Sounds like a goddamn nightmare.
Think about scientists, diplomats, activists, all dedicated to nuclear disarmament and non-proliferation.
Right.
Organizations like the International Atomic Energy Agency, the Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty Organization, and countless NGOs are working to raise awareness and promote dialogue.
Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom. There's some folks out there trying to put the genie back in the bottle. But is that even possible? Can we actually get rid of all these nukes?
It's a long shot for sure.
Yeah.
But not entirely impossible. Remember South Africa?
Right.
They've voluntarily dismantled their entire nuclear arsenal. And the U.S. and Russia have made significant reductions in their stockpile since the end of the Cold War.
Yeah, but they still have enough to blow up the planet a few times over it.
Unfortunately, that's true.
Okay.
But it's a step in the right direction. There are ongoing efforts to negotiate further reductions, even the eventual elimination of nuclear weapons.
Elimination. That would be fucking amazing. It sounds like a pipe dream.
It does.
Everyone's so goddamn paranoid and distrustful.
It's a huge challenge. It requires unprecedented levels of international cooperation and trust.
Right.
Which, as you pointed out, are in short supply these days, but it's not impossible.
Okay, so we've got treaties, sanctions diplomacy, and a whole lot of wishful thinking. What about the more practical side of things?
Sure.
What about accidents? These things are complicated as hell. It seems like it would be pretty easy to fuck something up.
You're not wrong. Accidents are a very real concern, and they've happened before. We already discussed the Demon Core incidents and the B-52 crash in Spain.
Yeah, those were some major fuck-ups, but that was a while ago, right? Surely we've gotten better at handling this shit since then.
The technology has improved. Safety protocols are stricter.
But the potential for human error, mechanical failure, or unforeseen circumstances is always there.
So you're saying there's still a chance that some idiot could accidentally launch a nuke?
It's a remote possibility, but yes, that's why it's crucial to have robust safeguards.
Right.
Clear lines of communication, a system that can prevent a single mistake from leading to a global catastrophe.
Okay, accidents are scary, but what about sabotage? What's stopping some terrorist group from getting their hands on a nuke and blowing us all to hell?
Nuclear security is incredibly tight.
Okay.
Think multiple layers of protection. Physical barriers, electronic surveillance, armed guards, the whole 9 yards, and the materials themselves are extremely difficult to steal or weaponize.
Difficult but not impossible, right? I mean, we've seen some crazy shit happen in this world.
You're right, complacency is dangerous. We have to be vigilant, constantly upgrading security measures, and working to stay one step ahead of those who might seek to do harm.
All right, so we're guarding these things like Fort Knox, but what about the people in charge?
The ones with their fingers on the button. How do we know they won't just lose their shit and launch the nukes?
That's the ultimate question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The decision to use nuclear weapons rests with human beings.
Right.
And human beings are, well, let's just say not always known for their rational decision-making.
Especially when it comes to politics. So even with all these security measures, we're still one pissed-off world leader away from nuclear annihilation.
It's a stark reality, which is why diplomacy, dialogue, and peaceful conflict resolution are more important than ever.
Right.
We need to find ways to de-escalate tensions, build trust, and make sure cooler heads prevail.
Okay, so we're all fucked and could die any minute.
It's a possibility.
That's comforting, but let's say by some miracle we do manage to avoid blowing ourselves up.
Right.
Doesn't all this shit still mess with people's heads? Just knowing that these weapons exist, that they could be used at any moment. It's gotta be pretty stressful.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. The psychological impact of nuclear weapons is profound. The constant threat of annihilation, the feeling of powerlessness, the anxiety it generates.
Yeah.
It takes a toll on individuals and entire societies.
Yeah, I can imagine. It's like living with a giant invisible mushroom cloud hanging over your head. You never know when that shit might go boom.
It's a very apt analogy.
Yeah.
And it highlights the need to address the psychological trauma these weapons inflict. We need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Acknowledge the fear and find ways to cope with the reality of living in a nuclear age.
Okay, so nukes aren't just a physical threat, they're a mental one too.
Right.
We're like a giant mind fuck for the entire human race.
That's a pretty accurate assessment.
Yeah.
They represent our capacity for both creation and destruction, a testament to our ingenuity and our potential for self-annihilation.
Yeah, that's some heavy shit to unpack. So where do we go from here?
Uh,
What do we do with all this knowledge about nukes, about the risks, the politics, the psychological fallout?
the most important thing is to stay informed,
Okay.
to educate ourselves and engage in thoughtful discussions, and advocate for policies that prioritize peace and disarmament.
Right. Knowledge is power. The more we understand about nukes, the better equipped we are to prevent them from being used.
Exactly. That's why it's crucial to keep these conversations going, to push for a world without nuclear weapons.
Right.
To remind ourselves that peace is possible, that a better future is within our grasp.
Okay, that sounds good and all. But what about the practical side of things? What can everyday people actually do to make a difference?
There are actually a lot of things you can do, like
Right.
support organizations working on nuclear disarmament,
Okay.
contact your elected officials and let them know you care about this issue.
Right.
Talk to your friends and family about it. The more people who are aware and engaged,
Yeah.
the greater the pressure for change.
All right, so we can vote, donate, and annoy the shit out of our politicians. Sounds like a plan.
Those are all good options.
But let's be real. Are these efforts actually going to make a difference? Or are we all just fucked anyway?
It's a fair question, and honestly, there are no guarantees. The threat of nuclear war is a very real and present danger.
Right.
But that doesn't mean we should give up hope. Every action we take, no matter how small, can contribute to a safer, more peaceful future.
All right, so it's not all doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm.
There's still a chance we might not end up as radioactive dust. That's good to know.
It's a hell of a tightrope walk, that's for sure.
Yeah.
On one hand, we've got these weapons that could wipe us all out. On the other hand, the very fact that they exist,
Yeah.
that nobody wants to be on the receiving end of that kind of firepower,
Right.
has created a strange sort of stability.
Yeah, it's a mindful. It's like we're all scared shitless of these nukes,
Right.
so we're not going to blow each other up.
Yeah.
But what if that fear starts to fade? What if some crazy dictator decides to call everyone's bluff?
That's the danger of deterrence theory.
Right.
It relies on rationality, on the assumption that everyone involved will act in their own self-interest.
Yeah.
But history is full of examples of people acting irrationally out of fear, anger, or just plain stupidity.
Right. People are fucking unpredictable, especially when you throw power and ideology into the mix.
For sure.
So even if we have the best intentions, the best safeguards, the best diplomats, there's still a chance that things could go sideways.
Absolutely. And that's why we can never let our guard down.
Right.
We have to constantly be reassessing the risks, updating our strategies, and working to reduce the number of nuclear weapons in the world.
Okay, so less nukes, less risk makes sense.
Right.
But how the hell do we actually get there? It's not like these countries are just going to hand over their nukes because we ask nicely.
Right. It's a complex process involving a lot of negotiation, compromise, and verification, but it's been done before. Remember the Strategic Arms Reduction Treaties START 1 and START 2?
Right.
Those agreements led to significant reductions in the U.S. and Soviet nuclear arsenals.
Yeah, those were big deals back in the day. But isn't that all kind of stalled out now? With all the tension between the U.S. and Russia and all these other countries getting in on the nuclear game, it doesn't feel like anyone's really talking about disarmament anymore.
It's true that the current geopolitical climate is challenging,
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean we should give up on diplomacy.
Right.
In fact, it makes dialogue even more important. We need to find ways to rebuild trust, establish common ground, and work towards a shared goal of a nuclear-free world.
Okay, so diplomacy's key, but let's be real talk, is cheap. What concrete steps can we take to actually reduce the nuclear threat?
There are a number of practical measures that could make a real difference.
Okay.
First, we need to strengthen the Non-Proliferation Treaty and make it harder for countries to develop nuclear weapons in the first place.
Right. Stop these assholes from getting nukes in the first place.
Yeah.
But what about the countries that already have them? How do we deal with those stockpiles?
That's where arms control agreements come in. We need to negotiate further reductions in existing arsenals, starting with the U.S. and Russia, which still possess the vast majority of nuclear weapons.
Okay, so less nukes overall. What else?
We need to work to eliminate certain types of weapons, like tactical nuclear weapons,
Okay.
which are designed for battlefield use and pose a higher risk of accidental or unauthorized use.
Does sound particularly fucked up. What the hell are those even for?
They're meant to be more usable than strategic nuclear weapons.
Right.
But that's a dangerous illusion. Their smaller size and shorter range make them more likely to be seen as a viable military option, increasing the risk of escalation to a full-scale nuclear war.
Jesus, more usable nukes. That's some scary shit.
All right.
So getting rid of those things would be a good start. What else can we do to make the world a little less likely to go kaboom?
We need to invest in technologies that can help us detect and disable nuclear weapons, think advanced sensors, surveillance systems, and even cyber warfare capabilities.
So basically, we need to outsmart these nukes before they outsmart us.
In a sense, yes, we need to be able to monitor nuclear materials, track their movements, and, if necessary, neutralize them before they can be used.
All right, so we're talking about a whole lot of technology, diplomacy, and international cooperation. Sounds like a tall order.
It is.
But even if we do all that, even if we manage to reduce the number of nukes and prevent them from falling into the wrong hands, there's still one big elephant in the room, right? The psychological impact.
You're absolutely right. Even if we never see another nuclear explosion, the
Right.
fear, the anxiety, the knowledge that these weapons exist and could be used, that will continue to haunt us.
Yeah, it's like this constant background radiation of dread.
Yeah.
It's hard to shake off. So how the hell do we deal with that? How do we live with the knowledge that our species has created the means to destroy itself?
It's not easy, but I think the first step is to acknowledge the fear, to talk about it openly and honestly without shame or judgment.
Okay.
We need to create spaces where people can share their anxieties, their hopes, their dreams for a future free from the threat of nuclear war.
So therapy for the entire human race.
Yeah.
Group hug with 7 billion people.
It might sound far-fetched, but I believe we need a collective effort to heal the psychological wounds inflicted by the nuclear age. We need to find ways to channel our fear into action, to transform our anxiety into a powerful force for change.
Okay, I'm getting a little touchy-feely for me here, but I get your point.
Yeah.
We can't let fear paralyze us. We have to use it as fuel to create a better future.
Exactly. A future where nuclear weapons are not seen as a source of power or security, but as a relic of a bygone era, a reminder of a path we chose not to take.
All right, folks, there you have it. A deep dive into the world of nukes. We talked about the science, the history, the politics, the psychology, the whole goddamn shebang.
We've only scratched the surface, of course, but hopefully this has given you a better understanding of the complexities of the nuclear age and the challenges we face in preventing a catastrophic conflict.
And hopefully it's pissed you off enough to actually do something about it. Vote, donate, write your congressman, whatever. Just don't sit there and wait for the mushroom cloud. Get out there and make some noise. Demand a better future for yourselves, for your kids, for the entire goddamn planet. That's it for this deep dive. Stay safe out there and try not to blow yourselves up.